the road that may or may not exist. It's well documented on this website that I've wanted to drive part of the Great Central Road to Alice Springs for a long time. Years ago, a mate of mine told me about a road that cut straight through the middle of the desert, saving thousands of kilometres compared to the conventional route. At the time, I wasn't sure whether to believe him. A bit of research confirmed that he wasn't pulling my leg. The route really did exist, although, having now completed it, I hesitate to call it a road. The word needs to be used very lightly. Back in 2019, I applied for the permits required to travel the route, and we were only a couple of weeks of setting off when COVID hit. Travel in WA was shut down, plans were cancelled, and like everyone else, we endured a pretty rough couple of years. By 2023, things were finally lining up. We'd upgraded the car to something far more suitable and added a small off-road caravan and planned to head to Leonora for a bit of prospecting before continuing on to Alice Springs along what's optimistically called the Outback Way. If you've read earlier posts, you'll know that the trip barely got started. On the second morning, a catastrophic mechanical failure saw us heading home on a tow truck. The repairs run into tens of thousands of dollars. Plenty of people told us to write the car off, but with finance still owing and a lot already invested in setting up for off-road travel, we bit the bullet and repaired it. At least that meant we could still keep a promise to the grandchildren to take them to pirate camp the following month. Which brings us to May 2024, our most recent attempt. This time we managed to travel about 100 kilometres further than the previous year before noticing a worrying noise coming from the engine. My first thought was the turbo. Surely not. This was the cause of last year's complete engine rebuild. We weren't far from Southern Cross, right on the eastern edge of the wheat belt, and we managed to coast downhill into town without destroying the engine. It was Saturday morning. The local mechanic was open until lunchtime and kindly took the car for a spin. His opinion? Probably not the turbo. He suspected the exhaust manifold, one of the few parts not replaced during the rebuild. Luckily, he had the part. That meant an unplanned weekend at a free camp in Southern Cross. Not by choice, but by necessity. Monday morning, the manifold was replaced. We were relieved of another $3,000 and sent on our way. But it became quickly obvious the problem wasn't fixed. Next diagnosis, a leaking belt pulley. No replacement in town, but the mechanic went above and beyond to source one overnight. By this point, I think they were starting to feel sorry for us. Unfortunately, still not fixed. Several mechanics, plenty of head scratching, and eventually the focus returned to my worst fear, the turbo. Once removed, it was confirmed as the culprit. The good news, no serious engine damage this time. The new turbo was sent overnight from Perth and installed by 9 o'clock the next morning. So now came the big question. Do we trust the car to tackle what lay ahead? One of the most remote routes in the country, maybe the world? Was it foolish to continue? Well, we did continue, and what an adventure it turned out to be. The biggest lesson? This trip should have been planned over 3 months, not the 3 weeks that we had. The Outback Way is famous for hundreds of abandoned vehicles along it. I made it very clear to the patrol I had no intention of adding to that collection. We were already 3 days late when we stopped to spend time with Greg and Liz and break out the gold detectors. We arrived after dark, not recommended, somewhere between Leonora and Laverton. Next morning the flies were relentless, but it was great catching up around the campfire. And yes, we even found a couple of nice bits of gold. Then came the big one. Once we left the bitumen at Laverton, it was 1,300 kilometres of almost entirely unsealed road until Catastrophic in the Northern Territories. The road had been closed for months due to unseasonal rain and only just been reopened. Laverton felt very civilised right up until we left the blacktop. We'd driven corrugation roads before, national parks, goldfields, but this was on another level. and given our recent mechanical history, confidence was already a bit fragile. Social media will tell you this road is easy, that four-wheel drive isn't essential. I can tell you now, that's complete rubbish. It's doable, people do it every day, but to say it's easy on your vehicle or your body is nonsense. One highlight we didn't miss was the Giles breakaway, absolutely stunning and clearly signposted. Many others we missed entirely, thanks to an app that refused to work. After a rough first day, dawn in the bush worked its magic. Birds, light, silence, enough to convince us to keep going. Then came a flash of green, wild budgerigars, right across the track. Something you never expect to see if you grew up with them in cages back in the UK. Not long after that, camels. A flock apparently. Still doesn't sound right to me. A few hours later, bang. One rear tyre completely shredded. Changing a tyre on a lifted four-wheel drive in the middle of nowhere isn't ideal. But years of YouTube research finally paid off. Debbie was placed in a chair with a drink and a crossword, close enough to be involved, far enough to be safe, and available when I needed a helping hand lining up the studs. We reached camp mid-afternoon with plenty of time to relax, light a fire and look up. The stars put on a show that night, absolute magic. And that's when it really sank in. Despite everything, we were exactly where we were meant to be.